Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our webinar entitled Guidance on the Register of Apprenticeship Training Providers, RoATP. This webinar is the second in our autumn series, and we thank you for joining us. Before I introduce our main speaker, I'd like to explain a few things about our webinar platform to allow you to get the most out of the experience. All viewers will be in listen-only mode. However, to engage with the webinar, please use the on-screen panel. Using the tabs of this panel, you can adjust your audio settings and choose to see the webcam or the presenters if available. You can also use the question and chat tabs to engage with us. We expect that our webinar will be extremely popular, but our team will do our best to answer your questions and queries. During our webinar, we will be running a number of polls. To record your response, please click on the on-screen voting button when asked to do so. After the webinar, we will be providing a recording of the webinar, a copy of the slides, and a fact sheet to address any unanswered questions. Now, I'd like to hand over to our main presenter, Brian Kingsland.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for attending today. Right, so we'll move on to the agenda and what I'm going to actually cover today. I'm struggling to move. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to cover the 3 routes to apply to the Register of Apprenticeship Training Providers. We'll look at what those routes offer and which route might be right for you and your organisation. I'm going to cover some reasons not to apply because there are some organisations that don't need to be on the register. We're going to look at all the work you need to do before you actually apply, because there are some other registrations you need to make before you can actually apply to the register. I'll cover the Bravo e-tendering portal. We'll have a quick look at the financial health assessment and the spreadsheet that's involved there. And then we'll go through some of the compliance, capability and capacity and quality aspects of the application that you need to be aware of. I'll give you some hints and tips for success that have come directly from the Skills Funding Agency. And then we'll look at some supporting documents and also the offer that City and Guilds can give you to help further if you're having any issues with your application to the register. And then we'll go for the Q&A. So, without further ado, there are 3 application routes for entering the register. The application for entering the register closes on the 25th of November at 5 p.m. And those 3 routes are the main provider route, the supporting provider route, and the employer provider route. You should only apply to one route, so you need to choose the most appropriate for your needs. Now, before we look at those routes in a little bit more detail, we've got a poll question from Jack.
So our first poll question of today is, how clear are you on the route that you need to apply for the RoATP? Very clear, quite clear, not clear at all, or is there more than one route?
And if you can vote now, are they able to vote, Linda? Yeah.
So we've had about 4/5 of people vote. As you can see, the very clear route is the clear winner. I'll share it with you at the moment.
Right, okay, so into a little bit more detail about which route is right for you. So the main provider route, this is for organisations that are going to deliver directly to employers. That could be employers that are levy-paying employers as well as non-levy-paying employers, if you're also going to apply to the current invitation to tender that the Skills Funding Agency has got out. So this will be for levied employers that want to deliver to their own staff and organisations in their supply chain and other organisations. So this is not a route that's just for providers. Levied employers and employer providers can also apply to this if they want to deliver outside of their own organisation. Again, as I said before, it's for organisations that wish to deliver to non-levied employers via the procurement process that the Skills Funding Agency has going. It's also for organisations who have the capacity to deliver a substantial part of their apprenticeship offer. Now this means that the main provider route is also for organisations that might wish to consider subcontracting. And if you are considering subcontracting some of your provision to other providers, that could be specialist supporting providers or other providers that are looking to get into the market, there are extensive due diligence requirements in the current funding rules for delivery by main providers. So do make sure you read those due diligence requirements if you are considering subcontracting and applying as a main provider. The next route is the supporting provider route. This is for organisations who want to deliver as a subcontractor only, i.e. they don't feel that they have the capacity or capability to deliver as a main provider yet. It's also for organisations that might want an entry route to the market. They don't have the structure yet to set up as a main provider, so they would use subcontracting or supporting route to enter the market. This supporting provider route has less requirements on the application process than the main provider route. Providers that apply to this route can't deliver more than £500,000 worth of delivery across their cumulative subcontracts. What that means is that they can't deliver more than 500k across all the contracts they have, even if they have a number of contracts with a number of main providers. The cumulative amount of that contract, those contracts, can't be more than 500k. And also, you must do delivery apprenticeships to employers via the main provider. You will not be delivering directly to employers. It has to be via a main provider. So your main contact will be with the main provider. And then finally, there is the employer provider route. This is for levy-paying employers who want to deliver to their own staff only, and also who want to act as a subcontractor to a main provider to deliver to their own staff. So you may not deliver all your provision. You might subcontract some of that provision from your main provider. And employer providers can't deliver outside of their organisation, so you would not, on this route, be able to deliver to your supply chain. You won't be included on the Digital Apprenticeship Service search tool. This is the search tool that the Skills Funding Agency and the government have put together that enables employers to look for apprenticeship deliverers in their area. You would be inspected by Ofsted under this route, and you'll also need to make data returns to the Skills Funding Agency and maintain evidence for the Skills Funding Agency financial audits. So that's the route for employer providers. So there are also some reasons not to apply to the Register of Apprenticeship Training Organisations. If you are an agency, a matching agency or an ATA, unless you're delivering directly, you don't intend to deliver apprenticeships, you don't have a reason to apply to the register. Also, if you've been training for less than 3 months, you won't have the information the Skills Funding Agency needs to apply to the register. So you need to have been training for more than 3 months, and you need to have your management accounts available to be able to apply to the register. So if you've been training for less than 3 months, that's not an option at the moment. If you've got an Ofsted Grade 4 for delivery of apprenticeship division in the last 3 years, you also cannot apply. You need to get a Grade 3 or better to be able to apply to the apprenticeship register if you've got delivery of apprenticeship provision. Also, if you have an Ofsted Grade 4 for overall effectiveness, unless of course you've got a Grade 3 or above for delivery apprenticeships, you also cannot apply. So if your whole overall Grade 4 for Ofsted is the outcome, and you don't deliver apprenticeships currently, but you're thinking about it, you cannot apply to deliver apprenticeships via the register until you've improved your Ofsted overall effectiveness. Again, if you deliver less than 100k of apprenticeships per year, you don't need to apply to the register. So small providers that will deliver less than 100k, at the moment you don't need to apply. The moment you go above 100k, you will need to apply. And also, initially, the first thing you need to do on the register is do the financial health assessment. If you score less than satisfactory on that financial health assessment, you won't be able to take your application any further. The grades for financial health assessment are outstanding, good, satisfactory and unsatisfactory. So you need satisfactory or greater to go forward onto the register. So before you apply to the register, there are several things that you have to do. The first one is you need to apply with the UK Register of Learning Providers. This will give you a unique provider learning number, a UK PLN. Once you have that and you've been through that register, you can use that UK PLN to apply to the register. You also need to register on the Information Commissioner's Office for Education and Training, and you need to set up an account on the Bravo e-tendering portal to be able to register in the first place. And the Bravo e-tendering portal looks like this. There's actually guidance there which enables you to apply to the Register of Apprenticeship Training Providers. and that includes support information for accessing the register, and also for accessing the invitation to tender for contracts for non-levy paying employers via the Skills Funding Agency. So we've got a poll question here from Jack quickly.
So now it's time for our second poll question, which is, what route are you intending to apply to? Employer provider, main provider, supporting provider, not intending to apply, or still unsure? So as you can see, just over half people have voted, and most people are going through the main provider.
Still quite a large proportion of you unsure about which route to go for, though. I'm hoping that this webinar will help that. So that guidance, just to be very clear, it's a really good guidance document about accessing the register and applying. And I would just say to everybody, if you are applying, it's really important that you read that guidance from the Skills Funding Agency before you go ahead. It's a really useful document. The Bravo e-tendering portal, this is the portal that you apply to the register on, and also that you can respond to the invitation to tender from the Skills Funding Agency for delivery to non-levy paying employers. So once you've actually applied, this is what you'll see on the front page. This is the portal for access to the register. There's also, as part of this portal, there's actually a link to it there, the screencast link. Bravo Solutions has video assistance for responding to online tenders. It's a really useful video. So if you are having any problems at all, I would encourage you to watch that video. It helps you with responding to the ITT. You can see there that the three pre-qualifying questionnaires, the PQQs, are numbered. There's the main route, which is 28910, the employer route 28911, and the supporting route 28912. So when you go into that portal, once you've registered on the portal, you need to pick the right PQQ to apply, because there are differences in those three pre-qualifying questionnaires. And you can see at the bottom there on the photo shot that the tender projects are actually available. You can click on the My PQQ or on the invitation to tender, and that will take you directly to the tenders that you're able to apply for. You can't apply for the invitation to tender for delivery to non-levy paying employers unless you've applied to be on the register. So you need to do both at the same time. If you've only applied, if you only respond to the ITT but you haven't put forward your application to the register, your ITT application won't go forward either. So you need to do both and ensure that you've got through. If you don't get through the application to the register, then your invitation to tender application will also not go forward, which means you won't be able to deliver to non-levy paying employers. So the financial health assessment. As I said before, you must score satisfactory at least to continue. There are several things that you need to do first as part of the application for financial health assessment. One of the things that's most important is that you upload your most recent financial statement or management accounts. The latest financial statements will be the ones that are signed by your director, your accountants, or your auditors. Management accounts, if you are uploading management accounts because you don't have 1 year's financial statements, they must include a profit and loss balance sheet and any relevant notes to explain what's on this profit and loss and balance sheet. There's very useful, helpful guidance on the first tab of the spreadsheet, which is the financial health statement. That document's very clear. Failure to comply with any of the requirements would result in an inadequate grading, so you wouldn't be able to go forward and complete the rest of the registration for the application to the apprenticeship register. So the financial health statement is the first thing that you must do. There are some organisations that don't need to complete the FHA. That's because their data is already in the public domain. The Skills Funding Agency and the Department for Education already have access to their financial documents. So those organisations are listed there. The general FE colleges that have an SFA, a Skills Funding Agency contract, local authorities and LEO schools, universities monitored by the Higher Education Funding Council for England, any government departments or non-departmental bodies, and NHS trusts and borough authorities. Your data and your financial statements are already in the public domain, so you do not need to do the financial health assessment. So the front page of the financial health assessment looks like this, and as you can see, there's guidance there on completing questions, and there's guidance on completing questions 21 to 33. There are 2 or 3 tabs on the financial health assessment spreadsheet, so do make sure that you complete all 3 or 4 tabs at the bottom of the spreadsheet. And the front page has really good guidance on how to go through the financial health assessment, so do read the guidance first. And that link there on the bottom right-hand side of the screen is the link that takes you to the provider's application instructions. You'll also find a link there to the financial health assessment. Right, so once you've done the financial health assessment and you start going forward into the actual compliance questions about your organisation, which are part of the application process to the register, there are certain aspects of compliance that relate to your organisation's legal position that you need to be aware of. First of all, for financial health, insolvency or equivalent proceedings are going to affect your financial health assessment, as are any proceedings against senior managers, directors or trustees, and it will ask about their legal and financial positions. It will also ask about possible legal or contractual disputes that your organisation might have, particularly if you already have public funding contracts. And finally, it will ask for confirmation that you have liability insurance of 5 million or above and any other insurances that you might well have. So you need to have those documents and that information ready before you go ahead. So once you've done the financial health assessment and you're into the actual application process for the 3 routes, and you've chosen your 3 routes, all applications need to include a safeguarding policy. Now, the safeguarding policy is the policy which looks at keeping children and young people and vulnerable adults safe from a wide range of potential harm. And it looks at your preventative actions, not just your reactions. So it wants to know what you are doing preventative-wise for your safeguarding policy. Main and supporting providers must also include their prevent duty and practices. This is your understanding of your organisation's responsibilities to prevent people from being drawn into terrorism. This is specified under the Section 26 of the Counter-Terrorism and Security Act of 2015. So main and supporting providers, you must have your prevent duty in place, your policies and practices, and all providers, that's including supporting and employer providers, must have your safeguarding policy in place, including what your preventative actions are. Prevent and safeguarding resources, there's some resources there, some links to the government publications on the prevent duty, and also the Education and Training Foundation has really good support resources for prevent and for the prevent duty. So if you need any support with those 2 links should help you go forward. So that's your capability and capacity aspect of the 3 routes. Also, main and employer providers must include information about your health and safety policies, your equal opportunity policies, any anti-bullying, anti-discrimination and promotion of diversity policies. You also need to say how you will submit your ILR data, that's your individual learner record data, to the Skills Funding Agency. You need to have a system which enables you to do that. Now, ILR, so organisations applying for the main and employer provider routes, you've got to have a management information system in place at the point that you begin delivery. So this system must be able to produce something called an ILR XML file. An XML file is a file extension from it. I'll read this out because I'm not a tech head, but it's an extensible markup language file format used to create common information formats and share both format and the data on the World Wide Web, intranets and elsewhere. So you need to have a system which will enable you to do that. For those of you that will only support returns for up to 500 learners, the Skills Funding Agency provides an ILR entry tool. It's available for download, and this software is free to organisations that submit data to the Skills Funding Agency but don't have access to the data management system. You can download the tool from the useful links area on the front page of the hub. That's the Learning Aim Reference Service and Financial Hub. If you search for it online, if you just put the Skills Funding Agency Hub into your search engine, that will come up. There's also a really useful user guide available on the ILR page on gov.uk. You can only use this software with Windows operating systems. It doesn't work on Mac systems. So that's the ILR data that you need to be aware of. You also need to have a business continuity plan if you are a main provider. A business continuity plan looks at how you will minimise disruption to apprenticeship training should something go wrong. And if you've got any issues with previous apprenticeship delivery, i.e., if you've not been able to actually award certificates for a previous apprenticeship delivery, it will ask you about that as well. So that's capability and capacity. And then also quality. This is another aspect of your application route for the 3 routes that you're applying for that you will need to cover. Ofsted inspection outcomes, or if you're an HEI, a higher education institute, any quality assurance agency reviews, you'll need to include them as part of your information on your application. This includes apprenticeship delivery, teaching and learning, and overall effectiveness gradings. So for the main provider route, it does ask you about this aspect of it. It will also ask you about your leadership and management approach. So you need to include links to your most recent inspection reports. And for leadership and management, it will look at the structure and experience and how you manage performance and quality and maintain high quality provision and what processes you have in place for this. So you need to include all of that information. For your staffing structure, it's generally useful or good practice to have a staffing matrix in place. This gives your staff numbers in each area that you're going to be delivering, what qualifications and experience they may have, particularly industry background for specific apprenticeships, any ongoing continuing professional development plans you have for those staff and training for those staff that's needed, and a policy to ensure staff experience and knowledge remains up to date. You can't actually upload a matrix, but you can include the information for your matrix in your response. It'll also ask you about management of your internal processes to ensure quality of delivery. This is the structure of your performance management processes for staff and for your organisation to ensure meeting the needs of both employers and learners. So it's going to ask you for information on that. You should be very clear what those structures and processes are in your response. Finally, it will look at your quality assurance and self-assessments needs. And this is your self-assessment report that if you're a main provider, you will probably already have in place because you will have already had Ofsted inspections. So your self-assessment and your quality assurance and self-assessment processes, how you measure success and how you use your data to improve performance and your outcomes across both staff, learners, and your equality and diversity processes. So it's going to be looking for you to include all of that information in your response. You have got a limit of 2,000, what's the word I'm looking for here? One word when you count your item. Oh, I'm sorry everybody, I'm obviously having a blank for a moment. When you word count on Word, it's better to actually count how many characters you have. It gives you a minimum of 2,000 characters. So a really clever way of doing this is to put your response into Word first, count it, and then cut and paste it into your response document. So finally, and this comes directly from the Skills Funding Agency themselves, there are several things that they notice when they get responses to either ITTs or applications to registers that they set up. Things that often mean that people do not get through the application process. So first of all, questions prefixed in the documents with a red asterisk are mandatory. You won't be able to submit a response if any of those are left unanswered. It won't accept it. The other thing is answer each question fully in the relevant text box. And finally, in this particular aspect, don't refer to answers given in other parts of the document. You need to give your full question answer in the relevant text box. If you refer to other information given in other text box, it won't be considered as part of your answer in that text box and could mean that you fail and you don't get through. Questions that require upload attachments must be in the format specified. They can't accept Mac and equivalent files. So it needs to be either a PDF or Excel or Word documents and image files. And as I said before, some answers have limits to the number of characters you can use in a response, so do make sure that you do that and you can word count on Word before you cut and paste in. And finally, this may seem like really obvious hints and tips, but the Skills Funding Agency has said, as I said before, the Skills Funding Agency have said these are the things that they often note that go wrong, that people don't do, that result in inadequate grading and not getting through. So a checklist to ensure you're uploading all the supporting documents needed, reading the application instructions fully before starting, ensure you fully complete all relevant questions in the document sections for your application route, ensure you've uploaded your most recent financial statements if they are required. You upload your completed application well before the deadline. You have got until 5 p.m. on the 25th of November to go back in and amend it. So even if you upload it now and then go back and edit it and check it, you can go in before 5 p.m. on the 25th of November and make amendments. Proofread all your completed documents and application before you upload, certainly before the 5 p.m. deadline on the 25th of November anyway. And don't leave your final upload to the last minute. Technology often doesn't play ball, and also the Skills Funding Agency has said that often they get everybody trying to upload at 5 p.m. Or just before 5 p.m. on the final date, and that rush can sometimes cause technology issues. So do make sure you upload well before that 5 p.m. deadline on the 25th of November. So finally, this is the support document for joining the Register of Apprenticeship Training Organisations and the application instructions. Again, a really useful document. It's got guidance for the financial health assessment spreadsheets as well, and that's the link to it. We can offer more detailed guidance and support for any of your application routes to the Register of Apprenticeship Training Organisations if you need us to. And in early 2017, we'll be doing some workshops to support providers with the funding arrangements, planning for delivery, any ILR changes, and also the performance management arrangements. And before our final couple of slides, we've just got one final poll question from Jack.
Thanks, Bryony. So our third poll question is, what are your main concerns about the application process? Financial health requirements, due diligence, quality requirements, or capability and capacity sections?
So it looks very much like it's the capability and capacity sections that are worrying everybody.
Thanks everyone for voting. I'll just share the results on screen. Yeah, it does look like that capability and capacity sections is a bit of a worry.
Well, as I said, we can offer detailed advice and guidance on register applications, including the capability and capacity sections. So if you've got any queries or concerns about that, please do contact Nicole Butler on that email at the bottom of the screen. We can support you with those aspects of the application process. We can also identify any gaps in current process systems and management information reporting that you may have to support that. And finally, we've got some upcoming webinars on other aspects of the apprenticeships that you might be interested in. On Wednesday, the 23rd of November, we've got an 8-step plan for getting ready to deliver the new apprenticeships. And from Monday, the 28th of November, we've got an employer engagement masterclass by our team here in City and Guilds. So thanks very much for participating. I hope that was helpful. And now we will take some question and answers if you have any.
So we do have a number. Sorry to share the screen. We do have a number of questions. Our first question is from Stuart Scott. We're intending on applying via the main route, but we've never been inspected by Ofsted. Will this affect the application, even though we are an established training provider?
No, Stuart, it shouldn't affect your application. But what you do need to do is make sure that your quality assurance processes and systems are well documented as part of your application. If you have all of that in and you already have a self-assessment reporting process in place, make sure you include that information in your application.
Question number 2 is from Michael Lermas. If we don't want to apply for the RoATP until April 17, can we still complete these 3 pre-registers?
Well, you wouldn't need to complete 3. You need to choose one of the 3 routes. If you don't want to, the register is opening this time and it closes in November. The Skills Funding Agency will be flagging to everybody in March. They've given the date of March the 6th. Who has got through the register application process and who hasn't. So, and then they intend to open it again towards the end of March or early April. So you will be able to put in an application in early April again, but you need to choose which route. You don't need to apply to all 3. You just need to choose one route that's most appropriate for you, and that's listed in the 3 slides that I put through earlier on in the presentation.
Our third question is from Jay Turner. She asks, applying to be a main provider and an employer provider seem to offer the same benefits. why would we apply as an employer-provider rather than just the main route?
Hi Jade. The employer provider is only able to deliver to their own staff. They're not able to subcontract or deliver to staff outside of their organisation. A main provider is able to subcontract and to deliver to staff in an employer and staff inside their own organisation. So there are some minor differences there that will make a difference to which route you choose.
Michael Lomas asked again if the ILR MIS systems will be available for those organisations for employers with less than 500 apprenticeships.
Yes, on the routes that I flagged in there, Michael, yes, you can download that software from the Skills Funding Agency hub, and it'll enable you to upload ILR XML files up to 500 learners. If you have more than 500 learners, you need to either purchase a system or ensure that your own system can actually provide the ILR data that the Skills Funding Agency needs on a monthly basis once you've applied to become a provider and you are delivering.
A question from Andrew Hay Ellis. Can you clarify an example answer for performance management structure and systems?
Unfortunately, Andrew, I can't give you too much detail because this is an invitation to tender type approach. It is through the Bravo SFA tendering portal. So it really is down to you to look at your own performance management processes and make sure that you think you are covering everything needed. There's various resources available on the web through the Education and Training Foundation that might help you. So I would suggest that you go searching for that and make sure that you are covering all aspects of it. With performance management, it does really look at how you manage your staff, what continuing professional development you put in place for them, how you manage your learners, and how your management structure ensures that you have processes and systems in place to ensure quality delivery to both employers and to learners. And that's what you need to make sure you have in place, and that's what you need to include in your application.
Question from Gary Jackson. Will all main and supporting providers require matrix accreditation?
No, matrix accreditation is for careers advice, and no, you don't require matrix accreditation to apply to the register.
Question from Paul Curtis. Are all areas restricted to 2,000 characters, such as safeguarding and delivery?
No, Paul, not all areas. It's only certain areas in the document, and when you go in and apply and you choose the pre-qualifying questionnaire that's relevant to your route, you'll see in the sections which areas have only got a maximum of 2,000 characters.
A question from Lindsay. Can you apply for ITT at the same time as RoATP?
You can apply for both, but you need to make sure that if you are applying for the invitation to tender to deliver to non-levied employers, that you have also put in your application to the Register of Apprenticeship Training Providers. You can't deliver to apprenticeships after the 1st of May next year if you haven't got onto the Register of Apprenticeship Providers. So to actually do the ITT, you have to get through the register first. If you make that application and you don't get confirmation of getting through in March when the Skills Funding Agency publishes the successful list, then your application for invitation to tender to deliver to non-levied employers will not go forward until you've managed to get through onto the register. So you need to do both at the same time.
Question from June Gray. How do our delivery partners need to apply for the RoATP?
If you've got subcontracting delivery partners, June, it does depend what they want to do, and it's really down to them to choose which is the best route. There are some subcontractors that will strongly consider becoming a main provider if they've got more than £500,000 worth of provision currently across their contracts. It's likely they may choose to become a main provider, or they may choose to continue subcontracting with you because they appreciate that subcontracting relationship. You may handle their ILR requirements and they may not wish to do that or purchase a system to do that for themselves. But that's really down to your delivery partners to decide what they want to do and what the right route is for them.
Question from Paul. Is there an appeal procedure on applications if you are not successful in November?
As far as I know, there will be no appeal process, Paul. What the Skills Funding Agency will do is they'll publish the successful list, and they'll also let providers or applicants that didn't get through the process know. I believe from what they've said, they're going to give some very basic information about what aspects of the application process you may have failed, which meant that you didn't get through onto the register. At that point, if you need some help from us, then please do contact Nicole on the email that I've flagged in the slides. We can help look at your application process and identify potentially where you may have failed to get through. But there will be an opportunity again in April. The Skills Funding Agency is intending to open the register for new applications 3 or 4 times a year. So once they've closed one process, they will score those applications, publish the list, and then they'll open the register again for further applications. So you can reapply if you failed the first time round.
Question from Phil. What happens to your existing learners if you do fail?
You'll be able to complete your existing learners. The Skills Funding Agency are intending to extend current contracts to cover funding for existing learners that you take on before the 1st of May. So your current contract will be extended to enable you to complete those learners, but unless you get on the register, you won't be able to take on any more learners or any new starts post 1st of May next year.
A question from Martin. If we apply as a main, can we still act as a subcontractor to other mains?
Yes, you can.
Question from Martina. Do we need to apply on the RoATP if delivering in Scotland?
No, because Scotland have different arrangements. This arrangement for the Register of Apprenticeship Training Providers is only for England. So delivery in Scotland is managed by the Scottish Government, and they deliver their apprenticeship provision in a completely different way via outcome contracts, outcome-based contracts with their providers. So no, you can't use English funding to deliver in Scotland. You have to approach the Scottish Government.
Question from Gary. Will subcontractors be limited to a percentage of the apprenticeship framework that they can deliver for main providers?
No, subcontractors can actually deliver a full apprenticeship. There are some comments in the Skills Funding Agency funding rules that basically state that a main provider must deliver a large proportion of their own contract. So you will be able to deliver, as a subcontracting organisation, you will be able to deliver full apprenticeships, but the Skills Funding Agency, I think, wants to limit how much of your apprenticeship funding you can offer to subcontractors. They will expect main providers to deliver a large proportion of their funding as full apprenticeships themselves. Or you can use a subcontractor to deliver part of an apprenticeship, for instance, a specialist area such as hydraulics in an engineering apprenticeship.
A question from Kathy. They had a short notice inspection in January 16, but a full inspection was in July 2011. Do they link the short notice letter or the full report of 2011?
No, it's Ofsted inspection outcomes in the last 3 years. So it's your most recent Ofsted inspection outcome within the last 3 years that you need to include.
Question from Marie. We intend to apply via the employer-provider route. Can we move to a provider route at a later date?
You could move to become a main provider at a later date, but you would need to go through the application process again and apply to become a main provider. So yes, you can act as an employer-provider initially. Once you choose to start delivering outside of your own organisation, you need to reapply to the register for that main provider route. You can't use your current application as an employer-provider to deliver outside.
Question from Phil. If you apply as a main provider with no intention to subcontract your SME activity, but then you need to subcontract your SME activity, what is the process?
There isn't really any process, Phil. It literally is once you've applied to become a main provider and you've been given a contract by the Skills Funding Agency to do so, or you're only providing, for instance, to levied employers and your contract is directly with the employer, you can choose then whether you subcontract or don't subcontract. I would just repeat that make sure you do read the Skills Funding Agency funding rules about subcontracting, because there are some really strong due diligence requirements for any main provider that's wishing to subcontract.
Question from Hannah. Is there a chance we would hear about successful providers on the RoATP before the 6th of March, or is that the publication date?
No, that's the publication date from the Skills Funding Agency, Hannah, I'm afraid. I know it's very close to the deadline that everybody has to start delivery from the 1st of May, but no, that's the date they've given, so it's sometime in March. They've given the 6th of March, but we know that sometimes there are delays, but let's hope that it's the 6th of March that information comes out.
Question from Gary. When completing the funding spreadsheet, is this only for new staff from May 17, or should it include rollovers?
The Funding spreadsheet? Sorry, Gary, I don't really understand that question. Can you repeat it, Jack? Let me just...
Yeah, when completing the funding spreadsheet, is this for new starts from May 17, or should it include rollovers?
Gary, I'm not really sure what that applies to. If there's a funding spreadsheet that the Skills Funding Agency has sent out, this might be, I'll answer the question how I think. It may not be the...
I think you may be talking about the SME tender, not the register.
SME tender. No, Gary, I'm presuming that the Skills Funding Agency has sent out a sheet asking you to list what current learners you have on programme. I'm presuming that's what you're talking about, and that you need to list your current learners on that, not starts that you might have after the 1st of May. So it's just your current starts. I hope that's the right answer to that question. If you've got any queries about that, then Gary, do contact me, and I'll try and expand on that.
Question from a different Gary. Is there a minimum contract value for main providers that haven't previously been directly funded?
No, there isn't a minimum contract value, Gary. Just the ones that we gave earlier, which is that if you're delivering less than 100k of provision, you don't need to apply to the register. What the Skills Funding Agency have said with regards to contracts on the new ITT for delivery to non-levied employers is that the maximum contract value they're going to give initially is up to 5 million. We do know that there are some issues with that at the moment, and the AELP, the Association of Employment and Learning Providers, is negotiating with the Skills Funding Agency because that will severely restrict some larger providers. We don't know the outcome of that yet, but so far they've said the maximum contract value will be 5 million. But that's just for your starts. It doesn't mean that you can't actually apply for growth in year for that contract. But I would wait to see what further information comes back from the Association of Employment and Learning Providers, the AELP's discussions with the Skills Funding Agency on that. There may be further announcements later on this year or early next year with regard to that maximum contract value, but they haven't given a minimum contract value, just that with 100k you don't need to be on the register.
Question from Paul. Is there an application form already completed as an example for providers to refer to?
No, because this is an invitation to tender, we're not able to do that. There's certain questions we can't ask because of the open and competitive tendering process the Skills Funding Agency has in place. So, no, they don't provide proformas, unfortunately.
Question from Ronnie. When arriving at the location request, does this need to include a cost of training up to July 17 or the total cost of the training?
At the location request?
Allocation request. Right?
Allocation request. No, I think it's your assessment of approximately how much you think you're going to deliver in the first year with that ITT. So it's looking at the size of the contract you would want. I think we're getting on to questions now about the invitation to tender rather than the register applications. So I can see there's a question at the bottom there about the funding spreadsheet for ITT for non-levied employers. So this is more about the ITT. This will be really about how much money you think you're going to need to deliver in the first year. So it'll be an approximation of how many learners you think you can start in the first year and how much funding you're going to need to cover that, according to what you're going to deliver apprenticeship-wise, because obviously different apprenticeships sit in different funding bands.
We are an employer looking to deliver to our own staff. Sorry.
Sorry, we're just scrolling down here to find more questions that you want answered.
We're an employer looking to deliver to our own staff. Clinical coach hours are a requirement of the framework delivery. Can we become a contractor, a subcontractor, and claim funding for this entitlement, this element?
Deliver to our own staff. Clinical coach hours are a requirement of the framework delivery. Can we become a sub? Yes, if you're an employer, you can become a subcontractor to your main provider for this element, and your main provider can pay you or pay you funding for the delivery of that aspect of your apprenticeship. So yes, if you're an employer and you're subcontracted to a main provider, yes, you can do that.
If our contract is under £10,000, do we need to complete this process?
No, you don't. If you've got a contract of under 10,000, and that's all you're delivering, then you don't need to go through onto the register. Any provider that delivers under £100,000 worth of apprenticeship delivery across all their contracts, that's their cumulative contracts, if you have more than one contract with different prime providers or main providers, if it's under 100,000, you don't have to go on the register.
What is the latest with the assessment policy for new standards? Does it still have to be done by a separate business?
The latest with the assessment. Yes, yes. The Skills Funding Agency is actually going to put some more clarity into their documents about the end assessment process. The intention is that the end assessment process has to be completely separate from the organisation that is delivering. So I would watch out for the funding rules about that. I think there will be an update to the funding rules sometime in the next few months that will clarify more detail about the requirements for independent in-end assessment. So do watch out for that update.
This question for Paul. We are an FE college and have an Ofsted report. We also deliver HND and above. Do we need QAA in addition to the Ofsted report?
No, you only need the Ofsted report because this is just for your apprenticeship delivery, Paul. So it would really just be if you were considering delivering higher apprenticeships or degree apprenticeships, then you might need to include a QAA review if you have one.
First from Lisa. If I have selected main provider, can I change to a subcontract route?
Yes, you can choose which route you want to do, Lisa. If you suddenly decide you actually want to be a subcontractor rather than a main provider, just upload the PQQ, the pre-qualifying questionnaire document for supporting route. You just need to choose one route, not two or three. So delete your PQQ for main provider and complete the PQQ for the supporting route.
Question from Wendy. Can you recommend a management information system?
Oh, Wendy, there are many out there. I mean, there's Matas, there's Yeti, there's a variety of them. Cognisoft and Tribal produce two management information systems, but there are other ones out there, and I wouldn't want to be accused of being partisan in any way. So, no, I can't really recommend one or the other. The best thing to do is to go out there and find which ones they are. And then decide which one you would prefer. But I mean, the two that I know are Yeti and by Cognisoft and Tribal's Matas. But there are others out there, so do investigate which one is best for you because they are all quite different. But they all will manage your ILR returns effectively.
That's the question from Tracy. What if the provider doesn't have their own Ofsted inspection report, as this may have come under another provider in the past?
If you've been a subcontractor and you don't have your own Ofsted report, there's nothing to upload at the moment unless you can get a copy from your main provider, which includes any of your provision, and that's actually listed inside that Ofsted report. If not, you just need to be very clear about your quality procedures and systems in the quality aspect of the PQQ response that you put in.
Question from Kirsten. What are the limits on subcontracting values? How much contract value can I subcontract, and who will that be managed by?
I don't think there's any limits on subcontracting, Kirsten, but it does state that a main provider must deliver a substantial part of their own contract, but there aren't any limits on subcontracting, apart from that 500K limit, i.e. if a supporting provider has cumulative contracts of more than 500K, they would need to apply to the main provider route to become a main provider.
Now, question from Jade. Do you know when the register of apprentice assessment organisations will open again?
Hi, Jade. They've said they'll open it 3 or 4 times a year, so I'm presuming that when they publish the latest list in March, that they will open it again in late March or early April for reapplications or new applications.
Question from Jackie. Can we subcontract to an employer provider, or do we have to go through a main provider?
An employer provider can't subcontract, Jackie, so no, you'd have to go through a main provider. You can subcontract to an employer provider if you are a main provider, though.
Question from Claire. If you apply to be an end assessment supplier, do you need to be Ofsted inspected?
If you apply to be an end assessment organisation, you need to be Ofsted inspected. We don't have the answer to that, Claire, yet. There's no clarification coming out of the Institute for Apprenticeships as yet on how external quality assessment will occur with end assessment organisations. We did meet with the Skills Funding Agency yesterday, and it was a conversation that we had. They are looking at the processes for external quality assessment of end assessment organisations, but we don't know how that's going to work yet, so I think we have to wait and see.
So we're going to have one more question, which is from Sharon. If we're currently delivering under £100,000 but intend to grow our provision, do we need to register in this round?
If you're currently delivering under 100,000, Sharon, then no, you don't need to apply in this round. But once you go above 100,000, you would need to apply immediately. And I'm not quite sure what the process will be for a provider that's currently delivering under and then goes over 100,000. I would assume that the Skills Funding Agency would request that you apply on the next opening of the register. I think that's all the questions that we've got, everybody. What we will do is complete a Q&A form. If there's any questions that we've missed, Jack and I will go through them, and we'll provide answers on that Q&A listing, which will go up on the website, along with these slides and the webinar sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours. Thank you for attending. I hope today was helpful. It'd be useful on the feedback questions if you can let us know what you thought of the webinar, as we need to make sure that any future webinars support you in the way that's most appropriate. So any input you want to give is really helpful, because then we can do future webinars which support you more helpfully, hopefully. Thanks, everybody.